everybody.
Okay, so this is a drawing that I did on location on Marsden Moor in the winter time, so over a year ago now, and it's the last time during the winter that I was able to get up there because it's away from my house, and of course with restrictions I can't travel there now. So I am developing a number of paintings based on the experience of the walk on Marsden Moor on that beautiful sunny day. And what's quite important for me to do, and which I think is really helpful, is to do studies from the studies. And so I'm going to move this now and show you 4 pieces that I have done in the last few days using the colour palette I've chosen, using a colour palette that has come from my experience and from what I've just showed you. And I'll just show you the 4 of them, and then I'm going to reconfigure them and make them into square format. So these were done from an A2 taped piece. So that's the first one. That's the second one. The third one. And the fourth one. And these were done as I say, on an A2 sheet of cartridge paper that was taped into 4, and I've used acrylic paint together with some water soluble woodies and some Inktense pencil. So I'm going to sort of choose one to sort of start with. I think I may choose this one, put that one to the side, and then it becomes how I'm going to do it. And so I kind of want to crop it so that I end up with a square. I've got a A4 spiral bound that I'm going to put it into once it's done. As a way of keeping it. So I'll see what I'm going to do. So what I probably need to do to start with is to get rid of this bit here. There's a lot going on here, but I kind of want to have some breathing space, so it's how I do that really. So I will clip it and see how I go. So I'll just move some of these things out of the way. Sometimes it can be a little bit tricky. So I probably just want to get rid of that bit there. I'm not terribly whizzy at this, so I do end up with a bit of a jagged edge. But I can trim that, so I'm not so worried about it. What I'm really find useful is that I just get going with it really. So in terms of that is about there. Let me just move it into the centre so you can see. There's a little bit of me that thinks I should chop more of this off, but I won't for now because I'll pay scaredy cat and probably just trim it to square. So that's probably about there. And what is really useful, I think, about doing the studies is that it helps you to explore more of what you're... I'm not going to worry about these scrappy edges because I'll sort of trim those. What is helpful is it does help you to explore what it is you're particularly interested in. And I've sort of, through doing these, I've started to get an understanding of some of the particular aspects. So the path and the track through the heather in the winter is quite important to me, and that's because there's quite a kind of an interesting story to it. So the path, which I think you can see here, you can certainly see here, is actually been laid from the flags of old mills. So it's almost like the stone has come from the land, has gone into the mills and come out again. It's that kind of layering of history, which I think is quite interesting. And by doing these, I started to think about that in more detail than I would have done had I not, had this sort of experience really of chopping these things about. So there's a little bit of me that thinks I could kind of just reenact it like that. I'm trying to think about the composition of it. I like the busyness, but I also want some breathing space, and I'm wondering whether I'd be better off taking another one and putting something else from another piece onto it. That might also work. So I don't know, there's something about just rather than, so what I may do actually now is I may just take some of this sky off. I don't know why I suddenly thought I wanted to take the sky off. And I'm calling it the sky because that's kind of what it looks like, 'cause it's on the top. I am going to really have to trim these, aren't I, with a pair of scissors. I'm really messing up. I think it's because it's quite thick paper, and therefore it doesn't tear as easily as it would if I had a thinner paper, and I don't really want it all scrappy on the edge, but so I'm just trimming it. But who knows, it's a sort of an interesting one. So now I have a one that's not tall enough, so it's not even close to being square. I might actually move on a little bit, and I might sort of start with this one. And I'd already looked at this one and thought, if I'm not careful, that will be right in the middle, which I obviously don't want, because it will just be sort of drawing your eye. So I'm going to trim some off this edge, so that sort of forces that not to be central by the time I've squared it up. So I think I'm going to start with this one now, having started the other one. So, and I think I'm going to always have this issue because it's around the edge, because it's really thick paper. Sometimes it's more than others. So in terms of the centimetre, so that's 19.5, and I just want to, I don't know if I want to mess around with it too much, so that would make it square, and it would also mean that that wouldn't be so central. So I might just try that and see how I get on with that, and it will give me one that might be less abstract than I might eventually want, but it will give me a sort of a confidence to sort of have one that sort of works, if you know what I mean. So and I suppose what I could do is to sort of tear it a little bit so it's not quite so straight. That could work. I'm tearing it away from me so I don't get the white edge of it, so that would be a bit that's quite interesting. So that's a sort of a start point, and whether I add anything to that or not, I don't know. What I probably will do is I'll probably add some more, continue that. But for now, I'll just leave it there and get on with another one. So another one I'm interested in is this one, but this one is got, you know, this massive shape here. Could I use some of it in a more of a clipped here? That's possible, I guess. Or should I clip it here? And I quite like that, and then I could possibly cover some of that. So again, making it 19.5. So again, if I clip it around there, that would be a good place to start, I think. Okay, so this one has this big thing through the middle that I think is just, you know, dissecting the whole thing and meaning that your eye can't move around it. So I want to kind of break it up, and I've got this piece from another of my of my paintings. So I think what I'm going to do with this one is I quite like the fact that you get this kind of quite straight sort of chunky line there with this sort of chunky mark here. Even though it does sort of, it's quite a hard edge, I quite like it because it blends at the bottom here. So I think I'm going to just stick that one in like that. Okay, so your eye is drawn a little bit by the contrast here, but that could be adjusted. And so I think I'm quite liking that as it is. So I'm just going to stick that one onto there, and then that will go into the sketchbook. I've got one more piece that I haven't yet done anything with, and again I want to crop it. Now I'm thinking, I do quite like that sort of dramatic mark across there, even though it is right across the middle. Why don't I do that? Why don't I just crop it? The thing is, you can get too fiddly with these things, and I really do need to just make a decision and go with it, really. Maybe I could put a piece that comes over. I do quite like that. Gives a bit more of a sense of the... That's probably even better, because that gives a bit more of a sense of the land, even though it chops that. Anyway, I don't dislike that. I'm convincing myself now that this is quite like that. I quite like this kind of line, just kind of this sort of strong edge. Not sure why I like it, but I do like it. A bit more dynamic, I think, with having that strong edge. And this is the last piece, which actually is the piece that I started with, if you remember. And in the end, I've just used up some of the pieces to create the blue on the top and the side elements of the open space. How successful it is remains to be seen, and oftentimes you only end up with two or three finished pieces from 4 to start with. So I just thought I'd end by showing you the reconfigured collages in the sketchbook. So that's the first one. That's the one that I grappled with, that came back to at the end. I'm actually quite pleased with that one now, actually. That's the one where I broke up the very dark central piece using that central inset. And that's the last one. So thanks very much for watching. Please do like and subscribe, and I'll catch you next time. Thanks a lot. Bye bye.